Welcome to the Candle Business Coach Podcast, a show about the craft of candle making and small business. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I'm a candle maker, mum of three, and kindness advocator. Join me as I dive into all things candles and small business and deliver advice and tips to you in episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Are you on the list to get my daily motivation emails? Every day I'll send you a message that is designed to help keep you focused on taking action toward your goals. Sign up using the link in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by my free ebook, the Candle Business Marketing Kickstarter Kit. Inside this free ebook, you'll find your blocks of time and learn actionable tips so you can grow your business faster and earn more income to lead you to your goals. Check out the link in the show notes for your copy. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different in that I'm sharing a recap of 2022 of the podcast. So for those that have been following along and are the original listeners, you'll know that I started work behind the scenes at the end of September in terms of getting the podcast up and off the ground. I bought my equipment and I documented the journey on Insta stories, and you can actually go to my Instagram at Candle Business Coach, check out the podcast highlight, and you can see the journey of me buying the equipment and starting the podcast and all the different milestones along the way, which I actually like looking back myself because it helps remind me how far I've come, even though it's only been several months. It's always nice to reflect and see your journey, and to be able to do that with technology is definitely very helpful. So in terms of the episodes that I've released and the experiences that I've had, the trailer was released towards the end of October. It was only like a minute or 90 seconds long. It was a bit of a teaser before the podcast officially launched on the 1st of November when I released a couple of episodes in launch week on the Tuesday and then another episode on the Friday. That said, every week since launching, I've released 2 episodes on the Tuesday and the Friday, and it's become just a part of my weekly routine now to sit down in front of the microphone and my laptop and record an episode that is relevant to the candle industry, whether it's a solo episode by myself or if I'm interviewing a guest and sharing knowledge from experts in the candle world. So I love the combination of both, of doing both, of having episodes where it's just myself in your ears and chatting to you about things to do with candles, candle making, candle business, or just general conversation as well. And then I also really enjoy speaking to other people and sharing the podcast experience with them. That said, I've interviewed nearly 20 people so far for the podcast. Not all those episodes have been released, although it's funny because when I do record the episode, and I say this every time to all my guests, but it was just such an amazing experience and I want to release the episode straight away, and it takes so much inner strength to not release all the episodes as soon as I've recorded them. So I am sticking to my 2-a-week schedule. So yes, these episodes where I've interviewed nearly 20 people in separate interviews, they're coming and they'll be released over Jan, Feb, March, etc. And I also have another 8 people already booked in for recording in the new year. So my Friday episodes, which is where I have a guest on the show, they're booked out to, I think, middle of Feb or end of Feb. So I've got a lot of people that are interested in the podcast as being a guest, which I really love. And I'm so grateful that there are people that want to be on my little podcast that's steadily growing, which I absolutely love. So I've published 18 episodes so far, including this one. Which is just crazy to think that I'm at nearly 20 episodes. But I suppose, I mean, it makes sense since I started the 1st of November and we're now towards the end of December. But it's just exciting to see the numbers growing, and I feel that I'm getting better with my interview skills, my recording, speaking from the heart as well as from knowledge as well. So it's, my ability to keep learning and growing with the podcast. It's almost like a reflection of my personal journey as well as my professional, which I really love as well. I've had so many messages from people all over the world and just obviously Australia as well, commenting and sharing their positive feedback about the podcast and different episodes, which just totally makes my day. So if you are from anywhere in the world, please send me a message on Instagram at Candle Business Coach, because I really love getting your messages and having conversations with the listeners, my listeners, and sharing the experience of the different episodes. Because when I sit down to record an episode, for me, that's current, like it's current time, it's present. It's not past or future, it's my present. So when I record the episodes and then release them, in a way, sometimes I won't say I forget the episodes because they're obviously still in my memory, but I've moved on to other things. So when I get comments and messages from people saying, oh, I listened to this episode or I listened to that one, and it really resonated with me for, whatever reason, it's like, oh yeah, I did have that conversation with that person. Oh yeah, I did say that into the microphone the other day. So yeah, I really love getting messages and I love being able to share that on my stories as well. So 2022 podcast highlights. Let's go through a short little list of highlights that I've written down here. So first and foremost, definitely having every single guest that I've interviewed on the podcast. I'm eternally grateful when I reach out to people and ask them to be a part of the show and they say yes and want to be on the journey with me. It really does make my day when I can share that experience with each and every guest and have just really beautiful conversations that I'm privileged enough to experience and then record and share with you. So having different guests on every week has been definitely one of the biggest highlights. Special mention to my Candle Idol, which is an episode that I've recorded, but it won't be released until the 10th of February. So when that episode gets released, you'll basically just hear me smiling throughout the whole episode and gushing about how excited I am that I get to record that particular conversation with someone that I look up to in the candle world. So definitely keep your ears peeled for the 10th of Feb episode. And also I was a guest on another podcast, Steph Taylor's Imperfect Action podcast. So Steph Taylor is an Australian businesswoman. She's incredible at what she does. And I actually bought her podcast launch plan as part of developing this podcast. And it basically walked me through all the different steps that I needed to follow to create and launch this podcast. So it was really amazing being able to be on her podcast and share my journey with what I'm doing with the Candle Business Coach side of things as well. So I had a look at my stats because I thought this would be interesting to see which were the top 3 episodes from 2022. So out of the 18 episodes, well, including this one that have been published. So number 3 is episode number 1, which is Meet the Maker, which is where I spoke about myself for about, I think it was 10 or 15 minutes, just sharing my journey of how I got to the point of becoming the Candle Business Coach and having this podcast. So that episode has had 215 downloads so far, which is pretty cool. Number 2 is the Candle Maker conversation with Michelle from Within the Chaos Candle Co. That's had 219 downloads. And the number 1 episode that you guys seem to really love was episode number 2, Branding and Labels with Jess from Long Story Short. So this is a reminder for me to message Jess and to let her know that she's got the number 1 spot of all the downloads for 2022. So can't wait to tell Jess that. So total number of downloads as at recording this episode. Drum roll, please. That's just my hands on the on my laptop. 2,516 downloads, which means those episodes have been downloaded that many times, which I'm so grateful for. And I honestly have no idea if that's a high number or a low number, considering I've had the podcast for almost 8 weeks, but I'm super proud of it. And I'm so excited that you seem to really love what I'm putting out there in terms of the different episodes that I've been recording and publishing. So yeah, 2,516 downloads. Very exciting stuff. So moving on to 2023 and what my goals are for the podcast. So I have lined up to appear on several other podcasts in 2023. So that's where I'll be a guest on other people's podcasts, which I'm super excited about. Make sure you follow me on Instagram as well, because I do stories daily where I sort of share what I'm up to and what's been going on behind the scenes with the Candle Business Coach world. So once I've recorded those episodes, I'll certainly share what episodes they were and on what podcasts on my Instagram stories. Another goal I've got for 2023 is that I would love to reach 10,000 downloads by this time next year. So we're sitting at 2,500. So to get to 10,000, I feel like it's doable, but it's still a goal that I would love to reach. So that's one of my goals for next year. Another one is definitely keep interviewing amazing guests on my podcast. So everyone that I've interviewed so far and the guests I've yet to interview, I love you guys so much. I think it's such a lovely way to connect through technology and be able to make our world a little bit smaller and more connected with things such as the podcast. So I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And then the last goal that I've written down here is that I want to keep learning and growing, not only for the podcast, but also my business and life as well. I'm a huge advocate of personal growth and professional growth as well. So for me, keep learning and keep growing is definitely one of the goals I want to continue for next year. Also, I will mention, if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, I'll leave a link in the show notes that you can, just a form that you can fill in. So if you're wanting to be a guest on the podcast, just so I can get to know you a little bit and see if we're the right fit. As I said, I'll leave the link in the show notes, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more about yourself. Lastly, before I wrap up this episode, please subscribe and leave a review if you haven't done so already. It really helps me help more people and reach more people in the candle industry and business world. So if you want to leave a review on Apple or I think Spotify as well, you can do reviews. That would be amazing, or even just a rating as well. Or send me a message and let me know what you think of the podcast, including today's episode. So thank you so much for being on this little journey of the 2022 podcast recap. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, as I hope you enjoy every episode. And have a very happy new year, and I will see you in 2023. Thanks everyone for listening today. I hope this episode added value to your candle making journey. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout today's show, and please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for listening. Have a beautiful day.